This is Leading with Power, and I wanted to welcome you. We're going to help you today to lead with power in your life, at home, at work, or in your community. The Apostle Paul said in Philippians 4:13 that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In the Passion Translation, it said, Christ's explosive power infuses me to conquer every difficulty. I'd like to welcome you here to this Leading with Power session, Conversations with Dr. Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author and speaker. Before we begin, I wanted to recognize and thank those who are our sponsors who make this webinar possible. In Wausau, Hurtis Heating and Air Conditioning, Brickner's Car Dealerships in Madison, Green Clocks Agency, Fearings and Welshire Advisor in La Crosse, to our many other sponsors who are not listed, and also in Wausau and Madison, those that are not listed, and even those, and especially those who are wanting to remain anonymous. Thank you so much for your support. Stephen's talk today is entitled The Most Important Things I Know About Being a Man. This is his fourth and final session of 2020. Men of Leading with Power, please welcome Dr. Stephen Mansfield. Stephen.
Thank you so much, Brent. Guys, it is an honor to be with you. This is our last time together for at least 2020, and I want to tell you that I am proud of you. Those of you on this call, you are prioritizing feeding noble manhood. I know it's been a tough year. I know it's been a disorienting year. I'm sure that fear and every kind of force has come against your soul. But I'll tell you, a lot of the answer, a lot of the things that are going to, a lot of the force that's going to bring the good days ahead is good men doing good things with their abilities, rising above their lesser selves and making a difference in the world. So I'm just proud of you guys. It's an honor to hang with you, and I want to dive in today. What I'm going to talk about today, since we've been together so much, since I know your leaders, since I've met a lot of you, I don't feel like I'm a guest speaker. I don't feel like I'm some stranger who's coming in to talk about something in some formal way. I want to talk to you about the most important things I know about noble manhood, righteous manhood, great manhood, being a good man. This is very personal. This is like we're sitting in my living room and maybe you're drinking some brown water or lighting up a stogie or whatever, and we're having an honest conversation about the things that I know about manhood, the things that have made a difference in my life, the places maybe where I've screwed up, learned some important lessons, and become a better man as a result. I've taught kind of a curriculum in the past, formal teachings, number of things, and this will be number 2. But these are some of the most important truths I know about how to be a noble man, about how to get through, about how to rise above, about how to be what you're made to be. I'm going to hit hard. I'm going to be raw. I'm going to move fast. And I got to jump off a little bit early this call. I've already told Brent because I've got to be on some national media here as soon as we're finished. But I'm gonna motor through this and do it right. So these are not in any particular order of importance. They're just in the order that they came to my mind as I scanned my life and thought about the serious lessons that have made a difference with me. So let's dive in. I've got a whole bunch of them, so just take notes as you want to, and write down the ones that are important. And by the way, bear in mind that if you hear something here and you hear me and go into a topic for a few minutes and maybe it's not 100% relevant to you, it might be relevant through you to someone else. So I'm not insisting that you pay attention to every word that I say. Just be aware that if I bring up, who knows, finances, I'm not going to, but let's say I bring up finances and who knows, maybe you're a CPA, maybe you're an MBA, your finances are great, they're organized, you know every dime you spend. Well, it might be something I'm saying to you to go through you to someone else, your son, your band of brothers, who knows, somebody you haven't even met yet. So give a listen. All right, let's dive in. The first thing I want to challenge you with, number 1 here, and I don't know exactly how many I'm going to end up with because I'm going to probably end up merging a couple of these as I talk about them. But one of the most important things I have learned about being a man is that every man needs to have a physical challenge going in his life all the time. I won't take too much time to go into the biology and the science of this, but men, some of the best things in men rise to the surface, begin to stir, begin to flow when men are faced with a challenge. It's why we love sports so much. It's why we construct challenges for ourselves. Men need to have a physical challenge all the time. I could spend the next hour telling you why this is good for you. Uh, Men, I got to tell you, quite frankly, most of us try to work out, and we work out for the sake of working out, and that's fine. It's a duty. I'm going to work out later today. I don't want to. I'm going to want to be sitting by the fire talking to my wife who's flying back home and, just relaxing. But I'm going to work out. Why? Because I want to be in shape, because I want to live for a long time. It's a duty. But when men have a physical challenge, especially when it's a competition with other men, and by the way, we can do that easily these days online with our digital watches and our Fitbits. Something rises to the fore. We will get disciplined for a challenge in a way that we won't get disciplined just because we have a duty to fulfill, just because somebody's nagging us, the doctor or whoever. It raises our testosterone level. It improves all the sexual apparatus. I'm talking about not without having sex, just the fact that you're pursuing a physical challenge. It will change all that stuff down there, all that stuff inside of you. It helps to make the brain more healthy. Of course, it does all the things biologically and physically that trims weight, improves your cardiovascular, all that kind of stuff. Every man needs to have a physical challenge. Now, some of you may do physical jobs, and so you're thinking, well, I'm already swinging an axe. I'm already lifting whatever, who knows, bag of concrete. But most of us, especially guys like us, older, I know some of you guys are younger, but all of us are, we sit too much in our modern generation. We need a physical challenge. And I'll tell you what, this has made a massive difference in my life. Grew up a jock, grew up in a military culture, lots of sports, lots of smacking everybody around, lots of pickup basketball and football, lots of, just kill each other in the pool with a ball, all that kind of stuff. As I got older, though, I worked out as a matter of duty, but I didn't work out with a challenge. When somebody challenged me, actually a medical guy who cared about me, when he challenged me, not just to work out to get it done and have the stats, but to have an actual challenge, to have a mountain I was going to climb, or a distance I was going to hike, or an amount I was going to lift, or some guys I was going to beat. I'll tell you what, it summoned some things in my soul and in my body that made a difference. So I want to encourage you. Have a challenge. I think I've mentioned before here the 90-year-olds who stay in contact with me, who compete with each other in mall walking. Now, that doesn't sound all that exciting, but for a 95-year-old, if he's walking 3 or 4 miles in the mall and flirting with all the ladies along the way, that's fantastic for him. And he's trying to beat the other guys who are doing the same thing. I have some physical challenges that I'm pursuing, some goals that I'm trying to achieve. I live, unfortunately, a lot of what I do, sitting at a desk, riding in a car, flying a plane, sitting in a conference waiting to speak. Too much sitting, too much sedentary, too much food. So being disciplined, yeah, I can do it. But trust me, every man should have a physical goal, something hard, something challenging, something he can brag about and celebrate when it happens all the time. Be the amount of push-ups, be the amount you're going to run, become the racquetball game, the tennis game, the basketball game, getting in shape for the football next year, whatever, the Peloton, competition, whatever. Make sure you've got a physical goal going in your life. Absolutely essential. Number 2. All right, we're going to switch radically. Get ready for the neck-breaking shift. It's one of the most important truths I know is that a secret life of porn, of masturbation, of fantasy, of hidden sexual conduct, it is programming you in a way that will make you numb and will destroy a marriage. In fact, I call pornography, a secret life of masturbation, etc. I call it divorce training. We actually know now that there is a thing called PIDE, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIED. When a man engages in lots of masturbation, lots of porn, he makes himself null. He makes himself numb. He has to have a constantly rising level of excitement, which often moves him into perversion. And I know of men who have come to me in tears because they were so excited about getting married to their hot fiance. They got married, and on the wedding night, they couldn't get it up. Why? Because they had given themselves so much to a secret life of porn, secret life of masturbation, secret life of fantasy, that the reality of a beautiful woman waiting for him in bed wasn't equal to the fantasies and the exotic and the wildness and the ridiculously surgically enhanced of pornography. So I can talk to you about porn and masturbation, things like that, from a moral perspective or religious perspective. But a lot of what I'm talking about today is just practical, biological brain science, what people are doing to themselves. And a lot of men are destroying their marriage. They're destroying what could be an awesome sex life with a real live woman who loves them and is married to them. And they are giving themselves basically erectile dysfunction of the body and of the soul in a way that's highly destructive. I grew up in Europe. My father was an army officer. I grew up in Europe. Porn was everywhere. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I come home from school. There were fully nude women standing on television selling potato chips. I mean, those of you, I lived in a particularly decadent city called Berlin. And it was unbelievable what was available. Well, I got into all of this stuff, masturbation. I even snuck into strip clubs because I was bigger and I physically bigger, and I looked older like a soldier on the military base there. So I got in without an ID. Can't tell you how it messed me up. Can't tell you how that whole secret life of porn and masturbation and all that messed me up. And I had to really detox and really get help later on. I didn't do anything criminal or terrible, but when I went later on, when I wanted to get married and I knew something was wrong in my soul, I got some help to recover from all those years of that European style nastiness. I'm not blaming the Europeans, I'm blaming myself. But be aware that that life is a life that numbs your soul and is training your body for ridiculously exotic levels of stimulation that no woman in a marriage should be held responsible for. And I can't tell you, because you guys know, before I did what I'm doing now, I was a pastor, worked with lots of guys who were going through divorces and had just infuriated their wives and had affairs and went off with prostitutes and all kinds of nuttiness. And it all had its root in porn and masturbation life. So I'm not beating you morally. That's not my point right now. If you want to call back some other time, I'll beat you morally. But the main point right now is that there is a programming of the body, the mind, the soul, even the actual penis itself, that can absolutely ruin your life. Years in porn and masturbation can ruin your life. Okay, I've said masturbation on this call more than you probably heard it in the last 6 months, spoken out by another male. But I care about you and I want to help you. Some of you guys are married and have this problem. Some of you guys want to be married and have this problem. Some of your sons have this problem. You need to step in and you need to help. Okay, number 3. I want to repeat very quickly something I've said to you before. With men, anger often masks hurt. Now, you've heard me say that before. I'm not going to take a lot of time with it. I'm not saying that all of your anger is a result of hurt. I am saying that anger masks hurt, and that many times angry men are men who are hurt, don't want to feel it, don't want to talk about it, don't want to relate to anybody about it. And so as a result, what they do is they cover it with anger. They cover it with bitterness. They cover it with resentment. Okay? Look at the sources of anger in your life. There's legitimate anger. There's righteous anger. Not all your anger is sourced in hurt. But a lot of angry men who are destroying their marriages and torturing their kids with anger, messing up their jobs, you know the kind of guy, can't play a pickup basketball game without losing it and punching somebody. A lot of that's about prior hurt. I've talked about this before. I've written about it, but I want to make sure that I mention it. All right, the next one. Guys, hear me on this. You've got to be rightly aligned with your father as best you can. Now, I know this sounds real psychobabble. I know it sounds like, some kind of a movie about my boy and his father, but I'm telling you, it is a truth. It's a practical truth, and it's something you got to hear. I don't have a lot of time to dive into the details of this. Some of you didn't have fathers in the home. I understand. Some of you had fathers who weren't very active. I understand. Some of you had fathers, and maybe, who knows, they got whisked away because of criminal life or military, or they died early. I understand. Some of you had fantastic fathers. Whatever the situation, or maybe you just had an average life with a father, but he had some warts and some flaws, and he damaged you a little bit. Whatever you can do to get right with the memory of your father, your living father. I had a father who was distant, military guy, often gone, a little shut down emotionally. We did better later in life, but he's passed away. And what I've chosen to do is what a lot of men I've studied in history have chosen to do. I've chosen to forgive. I've chosen to align with his memory. I've chosen to see him as someone who launched me into what I'm doing now. And not be bitter and not resent and not talk about that embarrassing moment and not remember what he didn't provide. I mean, just because I watch, some television show where there's a perfect father and I realize my father wasn't that, doesn't mean that my father wasn't a good man, didn't do good in my life. Look, you know how to do it. Forgive, call your dad, work it out. If your father's gone, if he's absent from your life, get aligned. Be aware that other men can step into your life and make a difference. We actually know now that we can make a difference in the life of a boy without a father if other men come around, to the tune of about 80%. And so it's you are affected by how you orient to your father. If you're bitter, if you're angry, you're going to screw up your life. Get right with the memory of your father, get right with your living father, get right with the wrongs of your father. Try to draw as much as you can in your life on the good that your father contributed. My father was a war hero and a distant father. Well, I can pull on that heroic. I can pull on that self-sacrifice. I can drink that stuff into my life. You have different stories like that. It's just one of the most important truths I know. And I'm not talking about it because I had some tortured relationship with my father. It's just a reality. Men don't often like to talk about their dads unless they have a great relationship with them, but make sure you get right. In fact, over the holidays, maybe have a longer conversation than you were planning for exactly that purpose. All right? Hear me on this principle. This is next. A man who is unaffirmed, a man who doesn't have other men around him telling him the good things about him, helping him know who he is, affirming him, encouraging him, especially a boy who's unaffirmed, he will affirm himself. And that often evolves into pride. And for those of you who are Bible readers, you know that pride goes before a fall. One of the most important principles I know is my buddies, my band of brothers, my son, my sons-in-law, my stepson. We affirm each other. We love each other. We speak good words into it. We speak the truth of each other. Of course, we confront each other, but we affirm each other because we know an unaffirmed, to not affirm a man is to feed pride. To not put every man in an environment where he's being affirmed. I don't mean just sitting around saying, oh, Joe, you're great. Oh, Joe, you're awesome. Oh, Joe, you're... No. I'm talking about genuine affirmation. I'm talking about telling him the good things about himself. I'm talking about telling him what you appreciate about him. I'm talking about affirming the good things he does, or the good things he is, or the impact he's had on you. If we don't affirm each other, if we don't build a culture of affirmation, we feed pride, and pride comes before a fall. This is absolutely essential. And it's one of the things I've had to deal with in my life. My father was a hard-hitting military officer, sarcastic, cutting. He later learned how to tame his words. But as a result, I grew up a prideful young man because I went to my room and affirmed myself. I got on the football field and kicked butt and affirmed myself. But it was building a stronghold of pride. All right, enough said. You want to build around you something that I've talked about before. I want to mention it very quickly because it is one of the most important principles that I know. You want to build around you a culture of respect, but one in which men can push into your life to help you if they need to. You've heard me call this something else. You want the free fire zone. I've mentioned this so much. I've spoken about it up there. I've written about it. You want in your life a culture, an agreement with other men, that they're respectful. You don't want to be disrespected. You don't want to disrespect each other. But you want men who will push into your life to help you if you need it. You don't want to be an island. You don't want to be remote. You don't want to be an iceberg. You don't want to moat around your life saying, everybody step back. If Brent and I are buddies, if we're going to go beyond just the hello on Sundays in church or hello at the restaurant kind of level, I want to get to the point with him, if we're going to be friends, where we're respectful of each other, but we have that free fire zone. The free fire zone is a condition in which anything that needs to be said to make us better will be said. I won't turn to Tony Zach and go, man, can you believe what Brent's doing? Gosh, I hope somebody talks to him. No, we take him to lunch. We sit him down, buddy. We watched you smack your wife the other day, or we watched you drink too much, or we happened to step into that situation where you went off on that guy at the store with foul language. Tell us what's going on. We want to help you, but we're not going to leave you alone. We can tell you're tortured. You understand what I'm saying? That's what good men do. So you want a respectful culture around you, but you also want it to be one in which people can push in if they need to. In fact, they shouldn't have to push that hard. I think I've told you before, I travel a lot. My band of brothers, they text me, write me, call me while I'm on the road, check on every kind of thing. Was the waitress, was the flight attendant flirting with you, and did it feel good? Did you happen to be changing channels on Friday night and happen by that HBO porn? The code word for my life is how are the Oreos? That's the code language for are you eating too much? I don't have problems in any of those areas, but I don't mind my guys checking. They can check with me for you about using crack if they want to. I've never used crack in my whole life, but they are so welcome to ask. You understand my point? They are welcome to check on anything. You need to have that. And if you don't have that, guys, look at your life right now, because I want this to be practical. If you don't have that, then I want to tell you you're in danger. We don't see ourselves clearly. We need to have other eyes on us. We need to have men who push around us. I've talked about that before. Okay. The next thing I want to say to you, and it's a question I get quite a bit, I'll answer it briefly. Your wife, your girlfriend, some female friend cannot provide in your life what men and a band of brothers are meant to provide. In fact, if you are trying to get your wife to be your best friend and fill that stuff in your soul that only other men should be able to fill, you are actually damaging your marriage. I love my wife. Some of you have met her. Her name's Beverly, accomplished, brilliant, beautiful. Love her, adore her. But she's not my best buddy. She's not the man I hang out with. She's not the one I talk to about what's going on in my soul when it comes to manly things. She'll even say to me, well, you getting enough time with your guys? I mean, not that she notices that I'm tortured or anything. She just wants me to be healthy in the same way I want her to be healthy. You cannot try to make the women in your life, your mother, your sister, your best female friend, the people you work with, your secretary, whoever, certainly not your wife, be the manly input, the manly connection that you need. You got to be careful about that, okay? Make sure you have men around you and you distinguish between what men put in your life and what women are meant to put into your life, okay? There's another thing I want to emphasize. I think I've said it before, but I don't mind repeating myself just a little bit in this call because I'm thinking through practical things that have made a difference in my life. And even if I've mentioned them, I don't mind mentioning them briefly again. And that is, most men don't realize the power of their words. You have unbelievable power in your words. In fact, well documented that in social situations and in raising children, et cetera, men, for the most part, their words hit harder, last longer, have longer effect than women. Not saying women aren't important. I remember things my mother coached me in and counseled me in to this day, and she's been dead for 20 years. But my point is that you've got to realize the power of your words for two reasons. I'll come back to that. You've heard the phrase toxic masculinity. I'm not opposed to that phrase because the word toxic comes from the Latin word toxicum, Toxicum. Now, I realize I'm a little bit more interested in ancient languages than most folks, but this one's important. When you hear toxic masculinity, I want you to think about that word toxicum. You know what it means? It specifically referred in the ancient world to the poison that was put on arrows and then fired into people to kill them. So toxicum specifically used to refer to, now it refers to anything that's damaging or destructive or poisonous. But back in the day, when the word first arose, it was the poison that was put on arrows and then fired into people to kill them. Well, think of your words that way. When you think of toxic masculinity, think of men firing angry, bitter, harsh, destructive words. Think of the words that have been fired into your soul. You're so stupid, you'll never amount to anything. Whatever, I don't even want to repeat the phrases. And be aware that you could be doing the same thing. Your words have the power to absolutely light up your children, your daughter, your son, your wife, have the power to light up other men. I got to tell you, I've had people call me weeks later after I just had the briefest interaction with them because I try to say something positive to and about almost everybody I meet. I mean, obviously I can't do that all the time, but I try to say something like, I'll work with the clerk at the airline counter. And when I walk away, I'll say, you're great. Thank you so much. And I've had people come after me in the airport and say, you know what, that's the kindest thing that I've been told in months. And I said, you mean me saying you're great? Yeah, it absolutely. Imagine the famine of affirmation that person is living in. For Stephen Mansfield, and they didn't even know who I was, to say you're great is the kindest thing they'd heard. Well, be aware of your words. Be aware. I don't mind smack talk. I enjoy it with guys as much as anything else, but consistently on an ongoing basis, smack talk your wife, smack talk your daughter, you smack talk your son. You only smack talk your friends, you smack talk yourself. you're just doing damage. You're firing poisonous arrows into people's hearts, including your own. Be aware of your words. Speak kind words. If you have to practice in front of a mirror, do it. Tell people you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. Speak kind things. Speak what you see and admire in your children. These words live forever. Most of you on this call can still remember things said to you by a coach, a father, a mother, someone significant in your life, and they hurt and they curse and they damage and they pervert. So I want you to be aware of what you're doing and change that history, change that culture. Okay? The next one is your gifts are best used when they're invested in other people. In fact, most of what you are good at is for other people. I'm going to use a silly example, and I'm going to say it quickly. When I was a teenager, early college, I hung out with a lot of weightlifters. I did a lot of weightlifting. I was heading for college football. And as a result, because I got in those kinds of gyms, heavy weightlifting kinds of gyms, back before there were all these clubs that had every kind of machine and so on, I was around a lot of bodybuilders. I did any bodybuilding myself, so to speak, but these guys. And I wanted to be strong so I could be a significant part of a team. I'm not saying I was better. I'm just using this as an illustration. They wanted to lift so they could admire themselves in the mirror. Well, okay, maybe that's a noble thing, maybe it's not, but you understand the illustration. One guy was working out to be able to serve well as part of a team. Another guy was working out just to admire himself. Your gifts, the things you've been made good at, are not just for you to admire in the mirror. They're not just for you. Your gifts actually are best used when they're invested in the lives of others. The fundamental thing Stephen Mansfield is as a teacher. I'm primarily a teacher of books, television, whatever I'm doing, I'm fundamentally a teacher. Well, if I stand on a cornfield by myself, I'm not teaching. I might be admiring myself. I might be going, oh man, I sure do speak English well. I sure am bringing up ancient history well, or whatever I'm admiring about myself, but I'm not teaching. Can't teach corn. You got to have people. You got to invest in people. You got to care about them. I want you to look at your gifts and realize how they're fulfilled by investing in others. This is one of the great arts of manhood, that you invest your gifts in the lives of others, that you team with others. I've told you before, I'm no good at some things like numbers and money and keeping track of things and accounting. I'm terrible at that. But I team with men who are, and we accomplish great things because I have the gifts they don't have. You've got to realize that your gifts were given to you to invest in others and team with others. To just sit back, say I'm awesome, do it in isolation. You'll never be fulfilled, and you'll never be as maximally successful as you could be. All right. This next one, and for me, this is number 10. If you're keeping track, if you don't have those exact numbers, don't sweat it. I'm not worried about the actual list. But number 10 for me is something that's very, very important. I want you to learn how to pull on other parts of your soul than what your natural, normal life pulls on. You are more than just one kind of use of your soul, your brain, your insides. I'll give you a quick illustration. My life is a lot about brain and a lot about words. And it's a lot about going places, sitting around, and then getting up, speaking words, and then sitting back down, and then more words. Words writing, words speaking, words television, words, all this, words. Well, I live a lot in my brain. I live a lot in my head. I mean, even right now, I'm sitting in an empty room looking at an iPhone. I mean, I'm really one dimension. I love all you guys, and I know that you're there. But my actual experience is an empty room with a light circle and an iPhone. So this is my life. I'm looking in cameras. I'm speaking words. Well, I need to pull on other parts of my soul. So you know what I do? I play a lot of guitar. I get absolutely rowdy, stripped down to my underwear with my grandchildren, and we beat the tar out of each other. I hike. I love to hike. I set long distances, hours and hours of hiking here in Virginia and around DC area, and I hike. I like to get in a pool and play some kind of pool volleyball and just use it as an excuse to smack each other around. I need wildness. I need something other than sitting and food and in my brain, words. I got 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. You can imagine how long I have sat in classrooms, how many books, how many words. I'm pulling on one part of my soul. It makes you dry. It makes you uninspiring. It makes you narrow. So I realize I've got the whole verbal thing, speaking thing, words thing going on. I need other stuff. I need rowdy. I need artistic. I need creative. I need poetic. I need outdoors. I need to get rained on. I need to go do like Tony Zach and hunt down a moose and kill him by biting into his neck and haul him to the grill and, cook him. And then, I need that other side of my life. So whatever yours is, maybe you spend all your time doing numbers. You need to get out. You need to do other things. Maybe some of you have rowdy lives where you use your muscle and you're building things and you're in construction or whatever. Okay, pull on the other sides of your soul, the poetic, the musical, the artistic. Pull on more parts of your soul than your natural life does. You'll be happier. You'll be more fulfilled. You'll be more creative. By the way, statistically, you'll live longer. All of this is critical and vital. Okay. I think I've mentioned this to you before, this next one, number 11, but it's one I really believe in. I believe that good men, if they're going to live good lives, they're going to have to live their lives from the control room. Now, I'm a Christian, so I believe that the control room is heaven. But in your life, you need what I call the control room. It's not an actual room. It's a condition in which you sit quietly and consider your life. I've already talked to you about this. I'm just going to mention it quickly. You can't live your life at breakneck speed where you never sit quietly except for 2 seconds before you fall asleep on your pillow and ponder your life. I believe that men, time or two a week, need to sit somewhere. I don't care if it's in the backyard at night with a whiskey. I don't care if it's in the jacuzzi with a stogie. I don't care if it's while you're on a walk. It doesn't matter. The condition doesn't matter. What's important is that you're not interrupted and you have time to scan your life. Look at your life. Consider your life. Consider how you're living. Consider your family. Consider where you're going. Consider your goals. Consider what's working. Consider what's not. Live an intentional life. Live an examined life, as the old Greek philosophers used to say. Live a life that's intentional. You can only do that if you sit for a little while. I'm not even going to say an amount of time because it's different for each one of us. And by the way, some days I might sit for hours, some days I might sit for 10 minutes. But the point is that you live your life from the control room, the condition of reflection and thought and meditation and examination from which decisions are made. You make your financial decisions. You decide how you're going to live. You look at your life. You realize what's weak. You realize what's strong. You realize what you need to invest in. This is critical. Most men live their lives at such breakneck speed. They never sit quietly. And by the way, this needs to be alone. You can bring your wife in later if you want, but you need to have some time alone because you got to ponder her too. You got to ponder how you're dealing with her. And women tend to be more highly verbal. They can interrupt your thought process. I know that's a shock, but my point is that you want to serve her well with this time. So don't let her inadvertently interrupt it. Get a little time, pull away. Don't make it a big deal. For some of you guys, it's going to be 4 a.m. before you go on shift. I understand, but find the control room in your life. Okay. One of the next quick thing, and for me, this is number 12. If you're keeping tabs of the numbers, the next thing is noble manhood, righteous manhood, great manhood, strong manhood, good manhood, call it whatever you want. What you're pursuing has to be fed. It has to be fed. And that's something you can do. Now, you're doing it by being on this call. Delighted. But even when you're not on this call, even if you're not part of living with power, I mean, in the future, I mean, somehow you get moved to the other side of the world and you don't have these guys close. Of course, as long as we're all doing Zooms, you can do it from anywhere in the world. But you understand my point. You're not always going to have this kind of thing readily available. So you've got to learn how to feed noble manhood by doing what? Reading books, reading the Bible, watching good movies that inspire the virtues of a man, reading poetry, having friends where you talk to them and say, what's the most important principle of manhood you know? You sit over a hamburger and talk about that kind of stuff. You've got to intentionally feed manhood. There are manly movies. By the way, a brief list on the back of my book, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, just to get you started. You got to read good books about manhood. Again, back of Mansfield's Book of Manly Men. Most of you already have that, so that's why I'm alluding to it. There's a list of good books. You got to read articles. You got to immerse yourself in stories. Good movies that show men in friendship. And show men leading and show men rising above themselves and show men accomplishing. Seabiscuit kind of movies, The Mission kind of movies, Apollo 13 kind of movies. There are hundreds of them. You know them better than I do. But feed manhood on purpose. Read, study, memorize, read poetry, watch movies, put stuff before your eyes that encourages noble manhood. Okay? All right. Next one. Biologically, men have a stronger tendency to addiction than the young and then women. The reason is the downside of a good thing. We have a unique gift for habit. Okay, habit, H-A-B-I-T, habit. We have an ability to get in the groove and do things consistently and well. All right. The same parts of our brain, the same parts of our soul that make us able to do things consistently, that allow LeBron James to get on there and shoot that dang ball through that hoop, every single time almost. Habit, consistency, ability to move his body the same way. He goes up for a jump shot. It's almost the same thing every time, unless he's challenged or, doing it in some odd position. Habit, we have that. We all of you have that ability. You do. But the same inner wiring that allows for that also empowers you to go from one whiskey once a month. And I know I'm mentioning booze a lot today, but I'm trying to be graphic and blunt with you. One whiskey once a month to 5 a night. One cigar a year or whatever to gotta have 2 a night. One Oreo to 2 bags full every day. Ridiculous, I know, but I'm making a point. Moving from Tylenol to something harder, to something harder, to something harder. Moving from the post-surgical medications that you were given to something harder, because you have an ability for habit that is both positive and negative. And so I want you to look at the things in your life that might be that you rely upon. I'm not so much talking about people right now. I'm talking about the thing, really the best way to identify a habit is something you can't live without. Best way to identify an addiction is something you can't live without. I assume that most of you believe that having a little alcohol is fine. A glass of wine with dinner or whatever. Great, have it. But there's a difference between that and needing it. There's a difference between that and an excessive amount. There's a difference between that and the fact that you think about it all day and look forward to it. And my suggestion to you is that you stop for a short season anything you see in your life that you're beginning to rely upon. Gotta have my sugar, gotta have my tobacco, gotta have my alcohol, gotta have whatever. Even sex. I mean, by the way, again, I say I'm a Christian. Most of you, I imagine, are. Even scripture even talks about men and women, husbands and wives, fasting sex for a while. So it doesn't get on top of them, so to speak. So it doesn't dominate them. So they can put their attention on other ththings and then come back together, the Bible says. So if the Bible's talking about taking a little break from sex, when it encourages it otherwise, by the way, then you want to pay attention to it. So whatever it is that you rely on that can become an addiction, take a little break from it. I'm not talking about forever. You can't go a week without any alcohol in your system. You're heading towards a problem. Better to know it now. And if you have no intention of developing an alcohol problem, but you sure do like it, stop it for a little while. Just fast it. End it just for a little while. Hey, I'm going to take a week and not drink any alcohol. Hey, I'm going to do Lent. Some of you maybe do Lent, 40 days heading to Easter when we give things up for Lent. Okay, give that up. Chocolate, whatever it is. There are 1,000 things that guys can get addicted to. Most of them are chemical. Most of them have an effect on their biological systems. Most of them are pleasures. I'm not trying to be a killjoy and say, hey, if you like doing something, stop it. No, I'm saying enjoy your pleasures, but don't let them control you. Don't let them control you. And if they are controlling you, give it up for a little while. Stop it for a little while. Tell a buddy, man, I got to tell you, I'm eating sugar like a crazy man. I'm going to take a break for a couple of weeks. Would you mind holding me accountable and keeping me and checking in with me from time to time? I think it'll make a big difference for your life. Watch the addictions in your life. I'm not just lecturing you. I'm saying this is one of the great arts of manhood, that we know what we're good at, but we also know the downside of what we're good at, which is that we can easily get addicted to things. Okay, moving along. Another gift of men is that men, for the most part, have good memories, and they have good memories for visceral experiences. And so if you have sources of bitterness in your past, it's very likely that those live very close to the surface in your soul and in your mind. You want to be very careful about bitterness. You want to be in fact, in the ancient world, the word bitterness was the word poison. It was the same word. I told you earlier about toxicum. That's Latin in the later Middle Ages, for those few who care about such things. But in the ancient world, ancient Greek, ancient Latin, The word bitterness was the same as the word poison. So you were poisoned by your bitterness, and we all know that's true. So I love men. I love the way that they can remember and hang on to things and tell a story about something that happened 10 years ago like it happened yesterday. That's one of our gifts. It also makes it possible for us to hang on to old wounds and old bitterness, that things that cause bitterness, and it taints us. And when you feel that bitterness, you let it cycle in your soul. It damages you physically, by the way. It damages your brain, but it also can make you entitled. When I'm bitter, I go, I'll just drink or eat what I want. I'll just do whatever I want with that money. I'll just do whatever. I'll show them. You know what I'm talking about. We feel entitled. That's where we often get in trouble. Some of the biggest leadership crashes we've had in this country were with people who felt bitter and entitled. Okay. So you want to watch that. You want to be very, very, very careful about that. Now, this next one's going to sound like it's related, and we're coming to an end here, but this next one's going to sound like it's related, but it's different. I want you to not ignore your wounds. We men grow up in a culture, as my football coaches used to say, tape it and get it back in the game. I could walk to the sidelines with my bone hanging out of my arm, and Coach Arushka would say, tape it, get it back in the game. You know, all he wanted to do was get his big defensive end back there on the right side of the line. Well, I'm being extreme to make a point, but we have a tendency to cover our wounds. We have a tendency not to look at them. We have a tendency as men, go, doesn't hurt that much, I'll move on. You know, the same thing we do when we slice into our arm when we're, cooking or something like that. Our wife goes, oh my God. And we go, it's fine, I'll handle it. Tape it, get back in the game. So I've worked with lots of men, and I'll tell you what, it's the wounds they overlook. It's the wounds they patch over. It's the cutting of an artery they put a Band-Aid on that ends up causing them problems down the road. 1,000 different ways, don't have time to go into it. But trust me, don't overlook, sidestep, get around, plaster over your wounds. If you're still conscious of them, if you're still aware of it, take time, look at it. Call in some reinforcements. I'm going to say words, some of you, that scare some of you. See a counselor if you need to. Good counselor, solid counselor, not somebody who's going to, burn incense and wave feathers over you. I'm talking about somebody who really knows what they're doing and knows the territory of the soul. Don't take your serious life-deforming wounds seriously. Don't jack around with this stuff. It's not unmanly to say, my father left our family when I was 13, biggest wound of my life. I've had an FU attitude ever since. And yeah, I drink to silence that pain. That's a man dealing with his soul. And I want you to deal with it that way. I'm not asking you to build an idol to your wounds. I'm not asking you to dance around them and talk about them constantly and let them define your life. In fact, I'm asking you to deal with them so they don't define your life. But that's one of the arts of manhood. You look at what shapes you, you challenge it, you look at the eye, you punch it in the nose, you deal with it, you get it dealt with. All right. Final thing I want to say, guys, because this is my last few moments with you. Final thing I want to say is this. I don't know where all of you on this call are spiritually, but I like talking to men in raw terms. I like talking to men in practical terms. I like talking to them about their psychology and their biology and the way they're made, because it's stuff our fathers, for the most part, didn't teach us. But I would be failing you and failing my own conscience if I don't tell you that the soul of all of this, the heart of all of this, is your connection with God. It was God who made you. God made you as a male. He created male stuff. He created masculinity. All the things we're talking about, all the mechanisms of the soul, all the great things about a man are all God's idea. They're all God's idea when He put them in you. And your life, your pains, your hurts, your wounds, your deformities, your perversions, tainted all that. And a lot of the reason we're doing what we're doing here together, so we can help each other get over those things that are barriers. But I want to urge you to not think of God in some narrow little religious-y way. I want you to think of God as the author of who you are. He loves you. He's proud of you. He wants to know you. And He made you as a man. And I want to suggest to you that you're not really going to fulfill the best of what you're made to be as a man unless you turn to God. You ask Him to come into your life. You ask Him to connect with you. You ask Him to restore you and heal you. You ask Him to make you what you're meant to be as a man so you can live powerfully as He ordained. And of course, all that's done through Jesus Christ. And there are people on this call who you can connect with, who will help you with that if you don't already have good people around you talking to you about that. So I'm not just about trying to preach. I'm not doing an altar call. I'm not going to take up an offering. I'm not about to say just as I am. If you even know what I'm talking about there. I'm not Billy Graham. What I am is a guy who is walking out noble manhood, and I'm able to do it because there's a God who made me, and he's restoring to me to his purpose. And I want that same thing for you. So may the Lord be active and alive in your life. Guys, it's a privilege to be with you. I've loved this time with you. I hope that Leading with Power gets me back up there again in the next year so I can eat with you and hang with you and hear the success stories and celebrate with you. But right now, let me just say Merry Christmas. You're about to do some polling. You're about to talk about a few things. I'm going to have to jump off for this other media that I'm doing, but I'm proud of you. I trust that your holiday season is going to be marvelous, and I appreciate this time with you.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it so much. He's going to jump off right now. We're going to take a look at the results of the polling, which I have in front of me, and then we'll be able to end a little bit early. The first question on the poll was, how many men are in your immediate circle of influence? 77% of you said 1 to 5. 18% said 6 to 10, and there were a couple folks, 5% of you, who said 16 to 20. So most people have 1 to 5 in your immediate circle of influence, and that's very good. The second question was, do you have a band of brothers, the kind that Stephen described? 52% said no, and 48% yes. So that's kind of split down the middle. So my encouragement is to get this book, Building a Band of Brothers. We can get these out to you. If you wanted to email me at brentjwelch@gmail.com, BRENTJWELCH@gmail, I'll get you a copy of this. We have a box of them from the Madison group, and we'd be happy to send that off to you. The next question is, how many goals among your determinations or New Year's resolutions, how are your goals manly? Do you have any manly goals? Pardon me, I read that wrong. Do you have any manly goals for your New Year's resolution? 57% of you said yes. So that's great. 43% said no. And I'm definitely challenged by the physical challenge, not just going through the workout. I'm going to do 3 this week, or I'm going to try to get to 4, maybe 5. Instead, to be physically challenged. Somebody said, Jeremy said, what was that email? It's brentjwelch@gmail.com, BRENTJWELCH, and I'll get you a copy of that book. Do you feel that COVID-19 caused you to increase or decrease your manly pursuits and habits? 59% said, yeah, that, it increased or decreased your pursuits or habit. Absolutely. That this was definitely some type of a train wreck that, we have to rectify and get back on the tracks. And, that's really important. So just to create a list where you're reviewing what you're grateful for is very helpful, both at the end of your day, maybe as you start your day, but also a list of things that you're grateful for. I had 3 things that happened to me that were huge challenges, including a business partner that gave me an ultimatum and wanted to take the company over. So I had to really work through that. And my counselor said to me, create a list of things that you're grateful for in the midst of those challenging situations. A couple more questions here. Question 5, do you have at least one friend where you have a free fire zone, as Stephen talked about? 75% of you said yes, and that's great. For the 25% that don't, reach out to the leader in your respective city, or again, to me, if you would, and I'll try to connect you with other people that want to have that band of brothers. I'm currently in a few different groups, so I'm sure we have space to connect with you as well. And the last question, do you feel like you're a better man than you were 18 months ago? And 75% of you said, surprisingly, yes. 75% feel like you're a better man than you were 18 months ago. That's fantastic. That's spiritual growth. And just like a baby who's born and goes through the toddler stages into the young adult stage and into adulthood, we also grow in our spiritual maturity that takes us to spiritual leadership. And that's why we're on this call. You are a spiritual leader in your sphere of influence. So go out in the power of God and go out and do those things that you can do. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, gives you that power, that dynamite to move forward. So in behalf of Leading with Power, I wanted to just let you know that January 13th, Frank Cerrone will be joining us. He's the director of Raven Crest Chalet in Estes Park, Colorado. For 30 years, he's been teaching men, and he has an exciting message about moving from prison to actually leadership in a country, a very powerful country. We're going to hear that story from Frank Cerrone the second Wednesday at noon of next month. In behalf of Leading with Power, I'm Brent Welch. Be blessed and be well.